Hello friend, welcome back to episode 2 in our hand lettering basics series. I'm going to jump right into today's topic, which is where I show you 3 of the main types of hand lettering. I want to preface this video by acknowledging the fact that there are many categories to hand lettering. We could categorize them by super specific tools used like Funosuke brush pens versus dip pens versus glass pens and liquid watercolor, all of which I have shown on this channel before. Or we could categorize them by specific styles like bouncy brush lettering, block style lettering, or slanted faux calligraphy. And we could continue to break down these categories even further and further to create, I don't even know how many combinations, but I think it would be a lot. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about 3 of the main types of hand lettering that I have seen over the years that I think are really popular and sought after. So this is your disclaimer. I know this is not a comprehensive list, but if you're into modern calligraphy, I think this is going to be the list that helps you begin to figure out which style you'd like to learn and go from there. So if you're ready, let's jump right in. The first type of hand lettering or modern calligraphy that you may see is monoline hand lettering. So rather than being a specific way to write a lowercase a or lowercase b, monoline actually refers to the type of line that you're creating with this lettering, with a little exception, but I will get to that in a little bit. But overall, what you need to know with monoline hand lettering is that you are going to create lettering where each stroke in the letter is made up of the same thickness. This can be done with many writing utensils, which is why it's getting its own category. I've done monoline hand lettering using a glass pen, using a pointed pen with a monoline nib, or using a simple ballpoint pen. Micron pens, gel pens, and those bullet-tipped ends of your brush pens also fall into this category. So even with monoline hand lettering, we could really dive deep into the specific types of monoline hand lettering. But for time's sake, I won't do that today. However, let me know if you want to see a video about that in the future, and I'm happy to help. But let's get back to our monoline lettering. The thickness of your lines in monoline lettering can be super thick, or they can be super thin. But the key here is that you aren't going to have both like you characteristically see in that modern calligraphy scripty style. And this is where my exception comes in. Some pens that I would consider to be monoline or monoweight pens will give you a slightly thicker line if you push really hard. But that's simply because we all write differently, and for one person with a heavy hand, they may use a monoline pen and get a really bold line. But for others who may hold their pen at a different angle or press more lightly, they may get a much thinner stroke with the same pen. This does not mean that the pen is not a monoline pen. It simply means that the pen is performing differently for different people, and that's okay because we're all unique and we all come at hand lettering in our own unique way. But the way that a monoline pen differs from a brush pen is that it's not intentionally made to draw thicker strokes when you apply more pressure. That word intentionally is key here, and that's the difference between the monoline lettering and our next style. So the second type of hand lettering or modern calligraphy that we're going to talk about is brush lettering. This is one of those places that we could get really specific about different types of brush lettering. There is brush lettering with a paintbrush. There is brush lettering with a large brush pen. There is brush lettering with a teeny tiny brush pen, or brush lettering with a water brush. But the thing that makes brush lettering stand out is that it's created with a brush pen-ish style of tool, and the strokes are thick when drawing down and thin when going back up. This is essentially the foundation of brush lettering or brush calligraphy. And we can break it apart even more and talk about brush lettering with our print handwriting, and brush lettering with our script handwriting, and brush lettering with capital letters and flourishes, and on and on and on. But each of those things that I mentioned fall into the category of brush lettering when done using a brush pen. I actually have a whole course on how to do hand lettering using a brush pen, and I have really worked hard to simplify this process because I know it can be a struggle, especially if you've never used a brush pen before. It can look so effortless on Instagram, but it's not all that easy, and I know that can be surprising to some people when they've purchased their first brush pen. So if you have ever struggled with hand lettering using a brush pen and are looking for a way to make the process more enjoyable and less frustrating, make sure to check out that course. I will link it below, or you can go to my website at howtohandletter.com/21days to see more about 21 days to better brush lettering. This course is truly where I'd start if you're wanting to learn brush lettering, and as a bonus, I have kept it super affordable too. Okay, so the third main type of hand lettering that I want to talk about in this video is pointed pen hand lettering. Things like Spencerian script, copperplate calligraphy, or pretty much most of those fancy scripts that you may have seen on things like envelopes or wedding stationery, These fall into the category of pointed pen hand lettering. And I specifically say pointed pen because, like I mentioned earlier, you actually can purchase monoline nibs to use with a dip pen. And I have a whole video showing you what they're like, so I'll link that below if you want to check it out. But my point is that not every single nib you'll find is a pointed pen nib that gives you thick and thin strokes. This was really surprising for me when I bought my first set of calligraphy nibs because I was pushing real hard trying to get thicker lines, and years later discovered that I was using a monoline nib. So I did want to point out there is a difference between the two, but for this category I am talking about the pointed pen where we dip it in ink and get those thick and thin lines, similar to brush lettering but with a pointed pen. And pointed pen hand lettering can be really similar to brush lettering. You can essentially take the same alphabet that you've learned in brush lettering and use a pointed pen to recreate it, but you'll end up with a completely different look. You'll likely have to write much smaller, and your thick strokes will be much thinner than they are when using a brush pen. You'll probably need a specific type of paper, and of course you'll need ink too. So while I do think that once you've learned brush lettering, you can more easily jump into pointed pen hand lettering, it does actually look much different, and that's why I wanted to talk about it in this video. I don't want anyone to see hand lettering like this and attempt to get that exact look using a brush pen, because it'll probably just be unnecessarily frustrating. There are so many possibilities when it comes to dip pen hand lettering, and there are a lot of differences as well. And so I think it's important to distinguish between the two so that you don't work really hard at brush pen hand lettering if you're looking for the outcome of dip pen hand lettering. Now, I know I mentioned earlier that there are many more types of hand lettering, and I'm happy to do a part 2 if you would like to see more. Just let me know in the comments below what types of hand lettering you want to see more of, what types of things you struggle with the most, or what you'd really like to learn. I will add this video to my hand lettering basics playlist where I go video by video through what you need to know when learning how to hand letter. I'll leave that playlist right here for you so you can jump right into that next video. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you over there.